So let's start the presentation of what is required in your business report for ISYS 2056 assignment, the report writing. So be aware that this is the lecture. It's almost the same as the lecture, but I'll cover a little bit more, just give a little bit more detail to you, which is required for this business report. So what are we actually looking for? We're looking for a business report that's not an academic report, so it's not full of references and so forth and complex wording. You try and make sure that your report's, simple wording, to the point. We don't want a massive amount of blurbs where it just confuses everything, right? You try to be concise as you can. Don't over blurt it and put information in that we're really not looking for or that we already know about, right? Okay, so the general structure of the report is, well, a lot of other documents as well. It doesn't just have to be necessarily this report, but you'll have a title page, which is required by the assignment. The table of contents, and I'll stress this again, table of contents, it's not a table of contents where you write and put spaces in and dots and so forth. It's an automatically generated table of contents from Microsoft Word, and we'll do that in the exercise in the following videos. An introduction, which is a straight to the point introduction, no blurb about the history of the world and all that sort of stuff. We want to get to the point of what you are analysing, and list the questions that have to be answered by the conclusion, right? Okay, so any of the items which are introduced in the introduction, saying, what this report, let's just as a quick example, what this report's going to do is, well, we're intending to analyse, sales data for the last quarter, right? In the conclusion, you should have the same. The sales data for the last quarter was 20 million, 30% increase from previous year. So the introduction poses the question. We are going to be looking at sales data. Conclusion says the answer to the question. The sales data was blah, 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 blah. Right? Okay. So in other words, your conclusion must be much, much bigger than your introduction. Right? The analysis and discussion portion of the document, do not use these as headings. Right? You should use your own headings. These are just general headings to highlight this is the body of the report, right? The analysis and so forth. I've already explained what conclusion is. They've said conclusions. You can also say conclusion, your conclusion. It doesn't really mean that you have to have 15 million conclusions. And obviously the last part is, on basis of everything that you've done here, all the analysis, what are your recommendations? For this assignment, they've listed up here saying, appendices. Appendices, usually what you'll see is things like tables, graphs, and so forth. In this assignment, take my advice, don't do anything with appendices. Make sure that all of your content, your charts, the tables, whatever you're going to put in, is in the content. It's only about 800 or 1,000 words. It's not 2,000 pages of document, which means put it in the context up here. And there is absolutely no need for such a short report to have an appendix. If I see an appendix, I'd be quite surprised. Right? All right, so what's the first part of this assignment? It says title page. They've changed it here to the cover page, which is basically the same thing. It's the title page of your report, and it should contain, or actually in the assignment, I'm pretty sure they've probably made it mandatory, insert a picture up the top. So it's only text here, but you would actually expect a picture, an appropriate sort of picture to what the report is. So there should be a title. Obviously put the course details, ISYS 2056, etc. in here. The student name and number, right? And the tutors' names. Ideally put both the tutors, and most important of all is your student number, and the last part is the date and time, right, on the cover. And if you actually have a look, the cover page does not have a title. It does not, header, sorry. and it does not have a footer. Right? So there's no page numbering and all this sort of stuff. It's just a blank page basically with some text and a picture on it. Table of contents, like I said previously, must be auto-generated, and we'll show you how to do that in Microsoft Word in the following exercise, or the unformatted exercise for this module. But the table of contents should be on a separate page, and what's missing here, usually what you'll see is a page numbering here, which is Roman numeral page numbering, and then the rest of the body or the content of the report will have standard old 1, 2, 3, 10, blah blah blah. Do not copy this format. These are just recommended titles for it's a recommended heading here for item 2, but you should have an introduction, conclusion and recommendation, and personally ignore the appendices. You do not need appendices in here. All right, and for your assignment, if the table of contents is not automatically generated, it will be seen and you'll lose marks, right? So make sure that you know how to do automatic table of contents. So introduction, like I said previously, what is an introduction? Introduction means get to the point, be straight to the point, and say what is the purpose of this this report. What's the scope? The scope means what are you actually looking at within the business? Are you looking at the entire business? Are you just looking at warehousing? Are you just looking at sort of date ranges, let's say for quarterly sales? So you have to identify the scope of this report, is how big or how in depth is this report going to be, and what you are really looking at is get to the point of what are you going to actually analyse. So it doesn't mean that you provide, like it says down here, we do not want all the information in introduction that the person already knows. So if you're writing this is referring back to the you know or know your audience. If this report is going to the owner of the business, the owner will definitely not want to know about the history of how long this business has been working, who basically started the business and so forth. He doesn't want to know about himself. Okay, so irrelevant information to tell an owner, oh, this business has been running for 20 years. He already knows that. Do not put it in the introduction. The introduction should be straight to the point, saying we are going to analyse blah X, Y, Z, and then in the conclusion, X, Y, Z was this much and this percentage and so forth, right? Okay. So know your audience. Who is it? And in this case, you know you're going to be writing a report for the business owner, so he doesn't want to know the history of the world behind his business, right? Structure a report. It really not really necessary. You do not have to say, oh, okay, this report will have a body analysis and it will have a conclusion. It's absolutely not required. The structure is reported to you in the table of contents. So the person, as soon as they open up the report, they will see the table of contents. That is the structure of the report. We don't really need to know anything else about that. Make sure that the paragraph is right to the point. Do not make it 3-4 paragraphs. For this case, you've only got 800 or 1,000 words. Make sure it's only about a paragraph long, right? So just get to the point. All right. Oh, sorry. Yes, that's it. Now, one other thing about the introduction. Do not put conclusive or conclusions like summarising what we've already found and you know, the major effect of this business was blah. Do not put conclusions into or summary stuff into what you found into the introduction. Introduction is basically posting the questions that you will answer through your analysis, right? Okay, and no need, absolutely no need to mention in the introduction saying, oh yes, I will be doing business analytics using descriptive, predictive, and so no need, absolutely no need. And the other thing is, please do not put into your introduction saying I will use Excel. Absolutely no need to tell us what what tools you're using, what sort of analytics and so forth, right? All right. So what are the different forms of business analytics that you will have to do on the data, or actually perform analytics on the data? And we know now, and you'll be harped to death, the 3 different types, which is the descriptive analytics. And remember, for the exam, you must know descriptive analytics is describing the current performance of a business using past and current data. Right? So you have to know how to explain what is descriptive analytics, and it would be things like total sales. An agent sold this much last quarter. So you're describing what actually happened in the business. So descriptive analytics means describing current state, right? Okay. You'll be doing these, all 3 of these, within the analytics to answer the report. And basically all 3 of them are the structure and the content of the report. So predictive analytics means looking at current and past data to predict into the future what will happen within this business. So through your analytics, you should see things like trends, patterns, right? So when you see these patterns, you can start, you can start forecasting, which means predictive analytics. Oh, I see that orange cars always sell really well on Mondays. So Mondays, I can actually say, oh, there's a pattern. Orange cars always on Mondays. Expect on Mondays, orange cars will be selling much better than other colours, right? So predictive analytics. And the last one, which is probably the most important within the report, is if you've done your descriptive, current state analytics, and you've done your predictive, so you've actually understood that there are some patterns and so forth, the trends within the data, then you can start predicting stuff in terms of saying, this is what you should do. So you prescribe, or you actually do, you begin to do prescriptive analytics, which means varying the inputs within your model to maximize outputs. Right? That's the definition of prescriptive. Varying the inputs to maximize the outputs within the system. So, for instance, in in your report, you will actually be saying, if we vary the input, which would be, oh, we need to increase this, we need to increase staff availability for orange cars on Mondays, varying the input, we will maximize the output by increasing the revenue. Right? So your prescriptive analytics means that you are recommending actions to be taken within the organisation to maximise basically maximise our turnover and our revenue. So it's very important that you understand all 3 of these must be covered within the business report. Majority of students only do the descriptive and some do predictive, so they say, oh, I wonder why I only got 10 out of 20, right? Because you've only covered half of the report. You must cover all 3 to be able to get that 80 to 100% for the report, right? So all 3 must be covered within the report. Okay, let's have a look at the analysis then. So in the analysis section, this is where you will be using the spreadsheet as your data to look at descriptive analytics. So descriptive analytics will be looking at the current performance. So with current performance, you'll be looking at total sales, how much was sold by someone, agent performance, product performance, date range performance, just to say this is what the current performance of the system entails. So you'll have to interpret in your own words what the descriptive analytics part was within your report. So that's basically the first section within your report. The next section, and don't mix them up, split them, is the predictive part. So in the predictive part, while you're doing the analysis to say, oh yes, we're looking at the agents and we're looking at this, you should be looking to see whether you can see some sort of patterns, whether you can see some sort of trends. Is there some anomaly which happens on a seasonal basis or so, right? So you should see these trends or patterns to be able to fill in the second part of your analysis, which is the predictive analytics, right? So you'll put that into your report. So you're looking for the current data. Oh, I see some patterns. You fill in the predictive portion. Once you've completed all that, you'll go into conclusions and so forth. But here is an example of, and personally, I'd actually say right off the bat, something that you don't do in a report, right? So this is actually a bad example, but here, do not do this, and I'll just list them off for you. First off, we're not interested. If you're the CEO of a company and someone gives you a report with an axis and still got cents on it, really not interested, because he'll only be looking here and look 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. You can change this to 6M, right? 5M, 4M. Not interested. If you're looking at millions, oh, sorry, it's 2 cents. Not interested, right? So make sure that your axes actually are appropriate for your audience. So if there's such a large gap between these, round them off, right? Actually, 6,000 K, right? It doesn't matter, but round these things off. This is not a good graph to present to a CEO. Other question here is, if you have a look at the bars and so forth, depends on if you're, it is appropriate to have it in this fashion. If you're sorting by names, like you're putting New South Wales together, Queensland together, Victoria together, that's fine to have this. But usually what we really like to see is maximum to minimum sort of sorting for bars. So we can actually immediately see, oh yeah, that's the maximum guy, and we can immediately see which of these guys are performing better than each other. Right? As it's presented here, I couldn't tell you from the figures here whether they are, they're not, and so forth, because they're very, very close. Right? Okay, for targets and so forth. So anyway, like between these guys, yeah, okay, you could probably still look, but it takes time. And if you're in management, top level management, you don't want to spend time trying to analyse this chart. I just want to look at it and 5 seconds later I've made my decision. Now here's the last part that I'll introduce to you, and you must put, before I do that, every chart within your report must have a figure. And it should be similar to this, or centered, or so forth. But make sure that your charts actually have a label attached to it. All right, now the last part. Don't hand in your report with the text or explanation of the chart after the chart. The charts and tables and so forth that you use within your report are evidence of what you're saying. Right? So, in other words, you must just explain what you found, and then put the chart in after the text. So the charts and labels always go after the text, not before the text. If it's done like this in before the text, the wording down here will be Kuehl, blue bar, Oliver, red bar. Right? All this text will end up doing is explaining this chart, which I can see for myself. So you should have detailed explanation here of what you found, and then whack in a chart afterwards as evidence to support what you say. So text first, chart after. Okay. Now another point here. If we read here, as seen in figure 1, blah 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 blah, right? Approximately 24%. Presently 40% total size. 27%. Approximately 23%. It does not make any sense at all unless you attach one of these percentages or all of these percentages to a dollar figure. Right? So if I say here, his target by approximately 24%, 24% of what? Right? So actually make sure that you include dollars and don't just speak in percentages like this. Right? So you must include dollars and percentages so people can see what the differences are. You can feel what they are. Right? Last one over here, from just this analysis bit. To improve the results, blah, 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 you can immediately see that this is starting to recommend something, which means this should actually be a recommendation. It should not be part of your analysis, because the analysis is doing descriptive. You are describing the current performance. You are not trying to be prescriptive. So this paragraph here should be at the end. And if you read it, look, even just looking at it in 2 seconds, if I'm getting paid $600 an hour, I would throw this report out, because there is absolutely no dollar figure here. It's all words. So I'm not even going to waste my time reading it, because it's pointless. Immediately I would be asking, oh, so how much is better? What are the other options? And so forth. So I'd be already looking for numbers and figures. So please don't use this as a good example. This is a bad example, but hopefully rewind what I just said and make sure you include what I said, to do within your report. Hopefully you'll get the idea if you rewind the video several times. Okay, so conclusions. As I said previously, your introduction is where you introduce the items that you'll be evaluating or analysing. In the conclusion, you must list those items that you're going to attempt to look at. List them in the conclusion with the actual analysis or the findings, which means must have dollar figures and percentages that go along with it. So as I said previously, introduction, we will be looking or investigating orange car sale. In the conclusion, it must say orange car sale was 20% increase from 2019, and the increase was $2 million. Right? So immediately you've answered the introduction question. So it must have some kind of tie-in. Right. Recommendations is your prescriptive analytics. So in the analysis part of your document, you did descriptive analytics, you did predictive analytics, so you see some kind of future, some patterns and so forth, so you do some forecasting there. And the very last part is where you recommend things, so further actions. And here's the important thing about recommendations, is if I recommend to you, say, yes, we should increase the amount of, we should increase the amount of agents or sales reps which will be pushing orange cars, immediately you would ask, how many agents? What do you expect of this implementation to cost? Right? So, money-wise. And what is the expected return? So your recommendations can't just say, put more agents on orange cars. It must be supported by evidence to say, if we put 2 extra agents, we will get a return of $100,000 in the next quarter. So that is a recommendation, not just, put more agents on. It must always tie in some dollar figure and a percentage, if you need to, of how you intend to implement, or how we should implement these recommendations. Okay. All right, and keep your recommendations to what you have analysed. So if you've done analytics on cars, aeroplanes, and so forth, don't come out and say increase marketing. If you have absolutely no data about marketing, what the demographics was and so forth, right, you can't comment about a recommendation. You can't provide a recommendation, say increase marketing, because you don't have that data. So only stick to recommending on what you were analysing. Okay. All right.